Can I just say, I've had an unusual number of requests, an abnormal number of requests, actually, to see the footage that I mucked up yesterday where I hadn't switched my mic on, where I basically spoke like this for 19 minutes with no audio at all. I can assure you it's basically... That's all it is. I got to the editing process. I thought, oh man, I've got to do it all again. I then did a 14-minute video, 15. Anyway, I think I did a 15-minute video, and actually, someone typed in the comments, "You owe me 4 minutes." So hopefully, I'm going to be able to do that today. I've also had an abnormal number of requests. People want to see more of me pointing out what's on my desk and I was at my girlfriend's workstation the other day. I call it a workstation. I don't know why I'm calling it a workstation. That sounds so poncy, doesn't it? It is basically her desk, right, where she does her work. People like this stuff. I think it's like voyeuristic. It's like a look through the keyhole. So I will show you 2 bits today. It's a tape measure. This is a real mess. This desk is a real mess. You don't ever get to see the full desk. And a peg, bit of pegging. This is not for any unusual reasons. I'm not sure what unusual reasons there would be. This is from the washing line. So there you go. And a little bit of electrical tape, which the electrical tape was because I ran out of plasters. I cut my finger. Probably can't see it. So I taped myself up with electrical tape. There you go. That's today's random nonsense from the table. Let's get on to some more interesting things. This is about the West Ham takeover. This is about the stadium. I have to be honest, I quite enjoy talking about this stuff. I find it intriguing. I actually find it quite exciting, actually, because I do get excited at the prospect of having new owners at West Ham. And any time I think it might be close, or I hear something that might indicate that we're a little bit further along to getting new ownership, I like it. I want new owners, and I also want the stadium to be torn down and for a new stadium to be built. Now, I understand, as we've discussed it on this channel, that Simon Jordan on TalkSport has said that no, there's no way this is going to happen. It's going to cost you £3 billion. I think I've made my case with regard to the Hill Dickinson Stadium costing 800 million, with Inter Milan Stadium, Inter Milan, AC Milan, San Siro costing £1 billion. I think I've made the case that it ain't £3 billion. I also like to think that I've made the case because of the footprint of the stadium, if you've not seen that video, and the surrounding area with the sort of unused athletics warm-up track, which is, say unused, it is utilised, but as a legacy asset, you can absolutely forget it. There's weeds and moss growing out of it. It's basically falling into ruin. There's a big enough footprint in and around the stadium that there's enough real estate there to make it a viable purchase. If you can purchase the stadium, you can scale it down. You can still keep it at 60,000 if you want to, and you can build retail, you can build hotels, you can build business buildings all around there, and you can make quite a tidy sum of money. I basically think taking over the island, if you want to call it that, the island that the West Ham Stadium is situated on, London Stadium is situated on, I believe there is profit in doing so. I believe it's advantageous for anybody to do that. Factor in a Premier League football team, which I hope we're going to be. Then I do think West Ham are a more attractive proposition than some people suggest we might be. It's also worth pointing out, particularly when we were linked with some Qatari investment, that a lot of the original Olympic Village, a lot of that area around Stratford has already been bought up by Qatari investment. So if that was the way you think we might be going, then why would they not? Why would they not? And we understand that Qatar is looking to get a foothold in the Premier League. Anyway, at the moment, it's not a case of anyone is better, because we know that's not the case. Just look at what happened to Birmingham City when they sold it to Carsten Young, who ended up getting... I don't want to say too much because I don't want to get myself in trouble. Go and Google it from yourself. What happened to Carsten Young, who bought Birmingham City off of Golden Sullivan? It wasn't very good. I think I'm quite safe in saying that. So, is David Sullivan capable of selling West Ham to someone who wouldn't do very well? Yes, he is. But I do think the number of people, it would appear at the moment, who are looking to get investment into Premier League football clubs, yeah, I would think the vast majority would probably run a far slicker operation at West Ham than we're seeing at the moment. Which brings us on to Albert Tripp Smith. I know I've said it a thousand times, it feels like, on this channel. But Albert Tripp Smith is, he's a broker. Now, obviously, I think he owns 10%. It might have been watered down to 8% when he did the new share issue. I might have that wrong, but I ain't far wrong. He owns between 8 and 10% of West Ham shares. Albert Tripp Smith's never had the outright ambition to solely own West Ham. He bought West Ham as an investment, which as did Daniel Krasinski. However, the really interesting thing about this with Tripp Smith is he is a broker. He is a broker who brokers big business deals. He's made a career out of doing so, of brokering billion dollar business deals, to say, and also handling distressed assets. Now, I don't quite understand what that means, if I'm honest, but it doesn't sound too good, and I'll let you decide whether West Ham are a distressed asset. I would surely imagine the longer we spend down in the depths of the Premier League and relegation stares us firmly and squarely in the face, the more distressed we become. So there's enough in it, particularly with him buying shares in West Ham, to suggest that he has bought his shares in West Ham to eventually facilitate and broker the eventual deal when it happens. Right? So whenever West Ham get taken over, I think Tripp Smith is going to play a prominent role. I think it's fair enough to say that. What is interesting is he's spending a lot of time in the UK at the moment, far more than he's ever done, however long he's had the shares for, 3-4 years, however long he's been a shareholder at West Ham. I think he does have a house in London. Very nice house, apparently. And, it's not that he doesn't pop over from time to time. It's just happening with far more frequency now. He was over in, let me get this right, he was over in September and he was over in October. He's been over very, very recently. And so the suggestion is he's over here on, I've got to do the inverted commas, has to be done, West Ham business. West Ham business. What could this West Ham business be? I'm not entirely sure. There was a rumour going round about a month ago that Albert Tripp Smith had actually shown people round the Rush Green training ground, which is bound to put anyone off, quite frankly, isn't it? Now, I joke. The Rush Green, I've got to say, Rush Green gets a bad rap, okay? Half of it is really neat and very modern. The building side of it is not so great. It needs rebuilding. It needs redoing. And a lot is made of the porter cabins there. I don't know. I haven't actually been to that training ground for, 7 years, a long time. When I was there were porter cabins there. Whether they're there or not, I don't know. But actually, the football pitches and some, I'm not going to say the facilities. The facilities are bad, but some of the equipment's good. Does that make sense? But anyway, somebody was shown around by Tripp Smith, Rush Green. Why would we do that? And I think we got sort of falsely fed this information. Oh, it was to do with sponsorship. Why would Tripp Smith be showing sponsors around Rush Green? He's just not the man for the job. He's not. That's not his role. There are already people employed at West Ham to do that sort of stuff, and it certainly isn't him. And that would be taking a far more prominent role in something that really doesn't have anything to do with, but somebody who only owns 8 to 10% of the business. So again, the rumours start to circulate that actually he is there and he is trying to facilitate a takeover of West Ham. And I do firmly believe we are closer to the takeover of West Ham than we have ever been. Before I go any further, I just remembered I've got to plug Beer 52. I haven't got to. I want to. Beer 52, if you've not done it by now, it's basically a free box of beer that you're going to get by basically using the link in the description on this video. I say free box of beer. There's 8 craft, beautiful, succulent, can a beer be succulent? Beautiful, succulent beers. All you've got to do is pay the postage, $5.95 for the box. 8 craft beers. Now, by the time you do this, they might not be the same 8 craft beers that I got. The craft beers that I got are from a brewery called Northern Monk. And that is really the idea of Beer 52. It sends you a box of beers and goodies and snacks and a magazine which tells you all about beers. They go around the world and they find the sort of beers you ain't going to get in a supermarket. beautiful craft beers from independent breweries. So the next time you do it, it might not be from the Northern Monk. It could be from a Bavarian, a German brewery, or something like that. Maybe a Scottish brewery. And you'll get to taste different craft beers. $5.95, that's all the postage is. They'll send you this big box of beer to your house. Go and enjoy one on us. The link's in the description below. But if you just go on to Beer 52's website, then you just put in, actually, if you go to beer52.com/hammers, that also gets it. But I'd use the link below. Then you make sure you get your discount. Obviously, it's 18 and above. Children can't be ordering this stuff. If you probably did, which you're not allowed to, I'm pretty sure hopefully your parents would drink it anyway, and not you. UK only, by the way. This is a UK only subscription. It's a bit like HelloFresh, where you get new stuff sent to your door. Give it a try. It's really, really nice. I have drunketh 4 of the beers already. I can tell you now, they're very, very nice. That's the other thing as well. When you order it, you can actually choose whether you like a darker ale or a light ale. I quite like sort of the light IPAs, like the blonde beers, stuff like that. People like me, old man. Funny enough, he's going to the game with me tomorrow. He prefers a darker ale for the more discerning palate. So there you go. A link's in the description below for your Beer 52. I want to talk about the stadium, and I think. Hopefully I'm not putting 2 and 2 together and coming up with 5 here. What I found really interesting was last week when Sadiq Khan spoke a load of old nonsense about the London Stadium, which I covered. I'm not going to go and repeat all that again. Go and have a look at that if you want to go and watch that. It's about the stadium, about what Sadiq Khan said with regard to the London Stadium. But I don't want to concentrate on what he got wrong. I want to concentrate on what he did say, what was really interesting. He said that if West Ham did have new owners, he would be very willing to sit down and discuss the London Stadium with them. Now, that in itself, that's the London mayor, right? That in itself is quite interesting language, quite important language, because realistically, he's got no reason to discuss these things. And I certainly do smell a whiff in the air. I should use that peg, shouldn't I? I do smell a scent in the air that something is happening. Now, I do feel he was... When you start looking at it and you think that quite possibly he knows that there is takeover talk afoot, when you appreciate that, you start to look at what he said about the stadium slightly differently. Now, I sort of tore apart what he said in terms of the stadium being a profit-making asset at the moment. But actually, if you were going to sell something, which I think he would want to do, you're going to try and big it up, aren't you? You're going to try and make out that thing you're selling is better than it actually is, particularly if it's depreciating in value, particularly if it's losing money, particularly if it's sort of falling apart in sections. If you go in tomorrow, just have a little look. Honestly, I would encourage anyone, if you're going tomorrow, I'm going to go on the protest tomorrow, which starts at 12:30 from Stratford Station, and it finishes at 1:15 by the director's entrance. If you're there and you're going to walk into the stadium, if you walk up the steps and you walk in there, have a little look at that athletics track, and just I'm talking about the warm-up one outside. You will see look at it, there's dirt on the track, there's sort of moss and grass growing, there's some goalposts that have just been chucked to the side which are rusting away and stuff like that. As a community asset, it's rusting away, and I think that's quite symbolic of the stadium itself, which I do believe is having a bit of a clean-up and a spray paint at the moment. But it's not pristine, it's frayed at the edges, isn't it? I think if you had what you'd consider to be an asset like that, which is fraying at the edges, and you thought that you had a potential customer, you probably would talk it up and say, "Oh, this is great. We do baseball and concerts and all of that stuff." I made this point as well. This was actually really meant to be the National Athletics Stadium. It never became it. UK Athletics didn't even hold the National Championships there this year. It was held in Birmingham. Next year is the European Athletics Championships. That's a big deal, right? In any sport, it's the European Championships, right? That's a big deal. They're not holding it there. They're not holding it at London Stadium. They're holding it in Birmingham. Even athletics are not using it. They're European Championships. So let's not pretend that baseball makes a loss. So let's not pretend all these things are happening, right? But he is doing so, and actually I get it. I get why he's doing that. Because he wants somebody to come in and actually take it off him. Without getting overly political, right? A lot of stuff in London is underfunded. Let's put it that way at the moment. A lot of stuff. There's not a massive desire to keep ploughing taxpayers' money into the 20 to 30 million pound losses that this stadium is making every single year. If somebody offered to take him off his hands, he'd do it. Now, I understand it's a state asset and stuff like that has to be put out to tender. Those are the rules, right? But then you've already got the mayor saying, actually, we would discuss it. And when Pi Capital went to have talks about taking over West Ham, they held talks before they'd put an offer into West Ham. This is just before Kretinsky bought his shares. Pi Capital had talks and discussions with the stadium operator about taking over the stadium. It's there. They're telling you. Sadiq Khan is telling you. The facts are telling you. The history is telling you. This stuff is up for negotiation. So when maybe it's wishful thinking on my part, when I'm putting this stuff together, when I'm listening to what the mayor is saying about this, when I'm listening to, well, hold on, let's talk about. When I'm looking at the pressure that is being put on the board of directors now by continual protests, which are getting national airtime. I honestly, I didn't think that the sit-in protests would against Newcastle. I just thought, I've been in the stadium enough times to see that when the match finishes, it's just a cameramen. They're just people that work in the stadium. That the cameras get unplugged and people want to go home. I didn't think that this stuff would be filmed. It was. They filmed that stuff. The protest, the boycott, it was all discussed. It was discussed in the media. I've been on there. The Sky Sports have asked me about it when I've been on there. They want to discuss it. This march on Saturday is going to get traction. So this stuff is putting pressure. Is absolutely putting pressure on the board. The pressure is on for certainly Karen Brady and David Sullivan to resign their executive positions. They won't like it. But make no mistake about it, Tripp Smith and Daniel Kretinsky won't like being associated with it. You don't need this type of negativity. Then you add it to the fact that Tripp Smith is flying over on supposed West Ham business. You add it to the fact that people have been seen being shown around Rush Green. You add it to the fact that you've also been told that there is set to be more American takeovers of more English clubs. The idea being they don't want relegation. They want a Premier League 1 and Premier League 2. That's the ultimate goal. That's the end game. That is seen as the way to really see off any prospect of a breakaway European Super League. But if I keep talking now, we'll be. I've actually just double checked then that the audio was working. I want to do this again. This is what happened yesterday. I just spoke for 19 minutes yesterday and didn't switch my microphone on. So much of this stuff points towards a West Ham takeover. Am I being hopeful? Is it wishful thinking? Quite possibly. But this is not wishful thinking with no hints, no evidence, no little pointers indicating that maybe something is happening. I think something's happening. Will it happen quickly? I don't know. But something's going on. Something is going on at West Ham at the moment. And I'm quite excited about it, truth be known. Don't be wrong, I'm excited about the game. That's a different video. I'll do that video. In fact, I'm going to record tomorrow's video now about the game. So I won't be able to upload it in the morning because I'm going to the game. I'm excited about the game. But this is really something, you know. Is it so? I mean, it seems so alien that you might be able to be excited about the football and the future of the football club. It almost feels like the forbidden fruit, because it's been so depressing for so long. Anyway, I'm going to finish now. I'm going to carry on with me pegging. Who am I kidding? There's no washing getting hung up anymore. Right, I'll see you later.